Okay, so this video is for faculty more this time around, and this is for those trying to make the adjustment to online because of a variety of reasons, but perhaps it will have better longevity beyond this current exigency for shifting. But for those of you who are struggling to think through how your content might shift from lecture form to online, I'm just going to show you some ways that I've done discussion posts and kind of get it to from the bare bones, simple brass tacks, and then talk about some other, just a few techniques. I'm going to try and keep this under 5 minutes. We'll see how it goes. So hang in there with me. So what I am going to show you is a couple posts that I gave students. I created discussion boards. Some principles, I usually have a common structure where it's here are some simple instructions. Either do a quick free write, post that, and then do these things. That's usually one part of it, and I will usually have them do something that just gets them writing. I usually, if it's supposed to replace a lecture, like with my online class for the summer, which is what you'll see here in a minute, I will usually have some sort of video or reading or resource or a few of them, and I'll ask them to do some simple things like do brief summaries of 2 to 6 sentences, depends on the level of the class. I might increase it, and then I'll ask them I might ask them a series of questions to respond more personally, and then I will tell them to go back and respond to other people. So at its bare bones, shifting a discussion lecture to what's the resource, some sort of basic summary and reflection or personal response, and responding to a few other students. Sometimes that's a simple package that you can just keep redoing along the way with a little variation if you're bringing it all the way down. So with that, let me show you just some examples. So here I've got a day 9, and so I've said I've taken a moment to say I want you to do a free write based on your experience with peer feedback, and that's what I would usually do in the lecture anyways, and then we'd have an open discussion about how do you deal with feedback. Was it terrible? Was it great? Was it wonderful? What about it? And then respond to classmates with a few more words, either commiserating and encouraging, and then watch these videos on how I usually handle peer feedback and that sort of thing. And then I have them come back and say, okay, 2 questions, 1 concern, and 1 interesting thing, so that they're fully fleshing this out. Now, this post is for a 4 or 5 week summer course, so I'm having them pack basically a full week into a single day. I'll try and take some time to talk about how to shift it for a 16-week and some of the things near the end. But that's one simple way, and I'm going to try not to show any student names. So as you can see, they did their initial free write, they asked their question, gave a concern, said an interesting thing about feedback there. Same thing with this person, and you see that I'll get a couple, and then they'll start, the student then responded back and forth to a few different ones. So that's one way of doing it. I'll just walk through. My next one is watch some videos. Here's the link. And then write a response about your own experiences, what was familiar from the readings or from the videos, what was the connection, so doing some of that synthesis work in their response, and then respond to 2 people who posted before you on 50 or using 50 or more words, unless you're the first person, and then you get to pick freedom. So sometimes they're just these easy back and forths. I do think one of the big points, one of the big things to remember for online is that we often get we have to cultivate that practice of response differently. In class, I can tell students to get up, walk around, give someone a high five, handshake, or knuckle bump, which obviously isn't recommended in these day and at this current time. But there's that whole elbow bump thing if you've been watching the news. But I can't do that the same way I would in person. I can't say talk in your groups. So I want to make sure that they get some direction and some response that's going to require them to push into something a bit more specific. And I may even take time to train them in that what is that discussion supposed to look like, give an example, or say be sure to focus on specific things and not just say, yay, it's great, or anything like that. So sometimes it takes a little bit for them to learn as well. So if that happens, for the first 1 or 2, keep giving them them feedback as they go and say, hey, here's what I saw you guys doing as a pattern or as a class. Continue making these adjustments in the last 4 weeks that we have of this thing, or however long it is for you. And so doing that, you'll see that students responded to each of the videos with a summary. And they began responding to each other, and so you can see they produced a lot, and there was only 15 students in this class, so they did a nice job with that one. Let me see what this last one is. So this last one, I think I've tried to embed the videos more easily, and 3 of them are my own, which would be kind of my standard 45 minutes of content kind of pared down. I think it's 45 minutes. It might be longer with that particular writing technology stuff. And then this neat video to respond to. So in this case, it was, okay, based on our readings, based on these videos, what are some, personalize this stuff. What are some of the writing technologies used on a daily basis? Then respond again to 2 previous students in at least 50 words or more, and 2 questions to push them into deeper thought. So now I've added a questioning component of the other student, so then it creates this dialogue back and forth, and you can do that as many iterations as you want to. You could even tell them today's post or today's response is supposed to be going back to yesterday's and finding someone in yesterday's, so many people distant from you, and building on what they said or asking them questions in a different way. One thing to be careful of, one of the reasons I have it consistently with the number of students moving, is that sometimes what will happen is the first 5 or 10 people will post and respond to each other, and then the last 5 or 10 or 15 people won't get any response because the other people have already done things. But if I always say, the 2 previous or something like that, then the only people who get to choose is the first 2. And so that makes it a little more consistent, but it also means that nobody's waiting. And so it's only that last person that kind of feels the lack of response, and then the first person gets the reward of freedom. So those are some things to consider and look at. And then so personalizing things, creating that interaction, sometimes across discussion boards, like go back to this thing. And if you'll note, I'm trying to embed the links. I'm trying to embed links to other assignments where some of this might show up. And that's just part of considering that user experience. I'll try and do a bigger video on user experience and user interface, but the more we can get students in an online environment bouncing across and between, the better. But this video is just about kind of the basics of creating a meaningful discussion post where you feel like students build something out of it or grow from it. So again, there are some simple functions where you say, okay, here's the resource, here's summarize it or give a personal response. Okay, now respond to somebody else's. What are some questions? What are some concerns? What are some interesting things? And you can pick and choose which pieces of that each time, and then response and interaction. So those are some basic things. I do, like I said, I think that kind of cuts it to just the bare bones, brass tacks, whatever you want to call it, practical side of a discussion. As you're trying to build community, again, making that interaction important. If you can make the individual posts more engaging through videos, I'll even use, I think this course had it here at some point. It used to have a GIF here, and so I'll embed GIFs and images and silly things along the way. Part of the reason for that is to take something that can often feel like a cold interface through the online environment and add a little fun. In this case, this is a 1.5 or a year-old course, and so the GIF, the link that I had used there, is gone now. But you can do it however you want. There are plenty of technologies, and Canvas does work with that if that's what you're using. So with that, I'm going to stop here. Since those are the basics of building a discussion for online and a few possible ways. Plenty of you have other ways. You can feel free to comment on the video and add tips because this is a resource for teachers. If you're a teacher and you've got something cool, I can think of a handful of people who are probably better at this than I am just off the top of my head. And so if you are one of those, drop things in. If you have resources on this topic on how to build online community or build online discussion, feel free to do that in the comment section below so that other teachers can grow from it too. All right, have a good one, guys.